Hello everyone, I am Nivedita Jana from Ambika Personal Research Foundation. Welcome to all of you to our channel Biodiversity and Conservation. Today we are going to discuss about the concept of endangered species and the wildlife protection and the red data book and red list categories, etc. So let's start. So the study of historical changes in geographical distribution can provide evidence of species that are threatened or endangered. The designation of a species as endangered is done on the basis of Wildlife Protection Act 1972 and Red Data Book or Red List. So the wildlife what is Wildlife Protection Act 1972? So the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 is a legislation enacted by the Government of India which provides for the protection of wild animals, birds and plants in the country. The Act consists of 60 sections and 6 schedules divided into 8 chapters. The various schedules provide varying degrees of protection to different groups of plants and animals. Schedule 1 and Part 2 of Schedule 2 provide absolute protection. Offences under these are prescribed the highest penalties. These schedules then form the basis for the recognition of the endangered species in the Indian subcontinent. Species listed in Schedule 3 and Schedule 4 are also protected, but the penalties are much lower. and the concept and structure of Red Data Book has been promulgated by IUCN. It aims at categorizing species at risk according to the severity of threats facing and estimating the imminence of their extinction. The IUCN the concept has been adopted by several countries which have started to put together their own list. In India, while the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 lists in its schedules species of animals according to their status in the world, the Botanical Survey of India and the Geological Survey of India publish the Red Data Book of Endangered Plants and the Red Data Book on Endangered Animals in the country, respectively. The IUCN Red List is the world's most comprehensive inventory of the global conservation status of plant and animal species. It uses a set of criteria to evaluate the extinction risk of thousands of species and subspecies. These criteria are relevant to all species of the world. With its strong scientific base, the IUCN Red List is recognized as the most authoritative guide to the status of biological diversity, and government, the private sector, multilateral agencies responsible for natural resource use and environmental threats all need access to the latest information on biodiversity when making environment-related decisions. And information about species and ecosystem is essential for moving towards more sustainable use of our natural resources. The Red List is an important tool to provide such information. Then the uses of Red List include draws attention to the magnitude and importance of threatened biodiversity, identifies and documents those species most in need of conservation action, provides a global index of the decline of biodiversity, establishes a baseline from which to monitor the future status of species, provides information to help establish conservation priorities at the local level and guide conservation action, helps influence national and international policy, and provides information to international agreements such as the Convention on Biological Diversity and the Conservation on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. Then coming to the red list categories. So the IUCN red list categories reflect the likelihood that a species may become extinct if current conditions persist. The risk status of species is based on information generated from the work of thousands of species scientists from around the world. Assessments follow a rigorous system which classifies species into the recognized categories. As per version 3.1 of the IUCN Red List categories and criteria prepared by the IUCN Species Survival Commission in the year 2000 and adopted by the IUCN in 2001. Nine categories are recognized in the system. They are the extinct, then the second one is extinct in the wild, then critically endangered, vulnerable, near threatened, least concern, data deficient and not evaluated. Those species that are classified as critically endangered or vulnerable are considered to be threatened, um, and the species are assigned to categories of extinction risk using defined quantitative criteria that form the heart of the system. These criteria are based on biological factors related to extinction risk and include population size, area of geographic distribution, degree of population loss, and distribution fragmentation. Then some definition of red list categories. Extinct. A taxon is extinct when there is no reasonable doubt that the last individual has died. Then extinct in the wild. A taxon is extinct in the wild when it is known only to survive in cultivation, in capacity or as a naturalized population well outside the past range. Then critically endangered. A taxon is critically endangered when it is facing an extremely high risk of extinction in the wild in the immediate future as defined by any of the criteria. Then endangered. A taxon is endangered when it is not critically endangered but is facing a very high risk of extinction in the wild in the near future as defined by any of the criteria. Then vulnerable. A taxon is vulnerable when it is not critically endangered or endangered but facing high risk of extinction in the wild in the medium-term future as defined by any of the criteria. The lower is lower when it has been evaluated, does not qualify for any of the threatened categories, critically endangered, endangered or vulnerable now, but is close to qualifying for or is likely to qualify for a threatened category in the near future. The least concern is when it has been evaluated against the criteria and does not qualify for critically endangered or vulnerable now, but is close to qualifying for or likely to qualify for a threatened category in the near future. And the data deficient, a taxon is data deficient when there is inadequate information to make a direct or indirect assessment of its risk of extinction based on its distribution and or population status. Not evaluated, a taxon is not evaluated when it is has not yet been assessed against the criteria.